Hi, this is Shep Alschuler, publisher of TimeSharing Today. Welcome to TST Broadcasting and the Resort Management and Marketing Channel. Our guest today is Kelley Ellert, Director of Marketing at Defender Resorts. We will be discussing generating revenues with online travel agencies, or OTAs as they are commonly known. Hi, Kelley. Welcome to the broadcast.
Hi, Shep. Thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Tell our listeners about your position at Defender Resorts and what you actually do.
So I'm the Director of Marketing at Defender Resorts, and my main responsibilities, I really concentrate a lot on content and communications and marketing, so I focus on all the content and the copywriting and the photos of our websites, all our properties, our corporate, new business development. I handle all the social media and training all of the GMs out in the field about how to use social media, handle all the social media advertising and that kind of thing. And then with it comes, random things. I've got a background in graphic design and journalism, so, just designing brochures and proposals and all that kind of thing.
Now, there's big concern among the legacy resorts, and you're aware of it, that they are experiencing a decline in revenues, and they're looking for ways to generate revenues that may be outside the typical maintenance fees. And the online travel agencies, the OTAs as they're known, seems to be having some greater appeal. So why don't we just start off by you explaining who are the major ATOAs? So
the major OTAs are, you've got OTAs that directly take inventory or they directly book stuff, like Booking.com, Expedia. Expedia is huge and owns a bunch of other subsidiaries like Hotels.com and Travelocity. And then you've also got Priceline. And then you've got your search engines that take inventory from them and just display it like a search engine. And that's like your Trivago and Kayak.com. And then we've got some untraditional ones that are kind of up and coming and growing, like HomeAway and VRBO, which are technically together as the same company, and they're also both now owned by Expedia. And then you've got Airbnb, which is getting a lot of traction.
Tell us how their business models work, particularly if they're working with a timeshare HOA.
The way that their business models work is their goal is to book stuff directly because that's where they make their money. They make their money from two different ways: advertising, which can make properties get more exposure on them, and that's a lot for your huge hotels because, like Expedia, for example, has a $10,000 minimum advertising spend per month on it. So most properties can't afford that. So the other way that they make money is by charging a commission fee off of every room that they book. So you don't pay them a monthly fee to be on there or anything, but for every night they book, they take a certain percentage of that out. And what they do is they book the room, and then they give you the booking. Either at Defender Resorts, they're connected right into our operating system, so they book it that way. At other places, sometimes they just have a contact that they send the booking to, and that physical person puts it in, and then they take out their commission of it, and then they remit the money to either the HOA or the management company or whoever their contact is.
You've had experience in working with them, so how effective are these OTAs, booking engines also we call them? How effective are they at generating, transient guests? Because that's really what their business model is built on.
Yeah. So yeah, they could care less if people repeat at the same resort. They want people to repeat booking through them. So, but we've been using them for about 5 years, and as far as I can tell, I would say that they're extremely effective at generating transient guests because they have these huge advertising budgets. I mean, you see Expedia and Travelocity, they've got national commercials during the Super Bowl. They've got all kinds of print and online advertising out there. So they're spending huge amounts of money. And then with all that money they're spending, they're generating incredible amounts of traffic. They're making it easier for people to find and book travel accommodations. So for us, they're really, really bringing us a lot. One example, we took a resort into our management portfolio a little over 2 years ago, and they were not using an OTA, and they had a ton of availability. And within 1 year, they had $122,000 extra dollars in revenue, and that's after the OTAs took their fee. So they netted $122,000 extra dollars for the HOA in 1 year, and then the following year, they had $224,000. So it increases it by insane amounts. So as far as we can tell, they're extremely effective especially at last-minute bookings and stuff. When people are, looking a month out, which people do nowadays. It used to be people booked their vacation 6 months in advance. These platforms have made it so easy for people to book closer that it really helps in filling a lot of those rooms that you don't think you're ever going to fill.
Now, the people who are using the booking engines, Expedia, they're basically searching for what, a destination or a specific resort. What is your take on that?
Most of them search for destinations, and it's kind of cool what we've found with it, and a lot of our strategy at Defender Resorts is, even though people are using them to search with, we're now entering a time when some people have had bad customer experience moments with them, but they still realize that they're good for searching. If you try to Google, on an actual search engine, like you go to Google or Bing, and you try to find a destination, like, for example, resorts in Myrtle Beach, you're not going to get actual resorts in Myrtle Beach. You're going to get Expedia's results for resorts in Myrtle Beach or Travelocity's results for that. So people are using them as search engines, and yeah, they're usually searching for destinations like Myrtle Beach on an Expedia. Then they're using that to see what all of their options are, and then they're exploring their options further from there. They're, picking out a couple of resorts that seem to have decent prices and amenities they're looking for, and then they're looking at them on TripAdvisor and their exact websites and Google and Facebook and all that kind of stuff.
Expedia has its own booking engine, and you have Hotels.com, and they're all part of the same mix, but do the HOAs have to contract individually with each one, or do you get one contract fits all?
It kind of depends. They can. The HOAs can definitely go out and contract with each one individually on their own, and even the ones that are all in the Expedia family, you would still have to contract with Expedia, Hotels.com, Booking, like all those individual ones, because even from a consumer standpoint, a lot of us don't even notice that Hotels.com and Expedia are the same company, because they actually offer like different points and reward systems and that whole thing. The other way to do it, and this is how we do it at Defender Resorts, is we use a larger distribution channel that has all the contracts and all the contacts with all of those, and they've got an extranet that we can log into. And so for that, it helps us because we just upload our inventory once. We do our listings once. We submit our photos once. It's one contract, and then they reach out there to all those individually. But we have worked with some smaller resorts that they maybe don't have a lot of inventory, so they just pick one. Like, they just go to Booking.com, and they just work directly with them. So it's possible to just pick one or two or a few and work with them directly, or there are these distribution channels out there that help you work with all of them.
Now, what kind of a commitment does an HOA have to make to an OTA in terms of a room block or something along that? Is there pricing considerations that have to be planned out, before jumping into a relationship with an OTA?
Yeah, so as far as pricing considerations, we look at, because they do take a commission, and the commission differs based on what they are. Like, for example, Expedia takes 25%, Booking.com, I think, takes 18%, so they vary. So we take the highest one, which to us is Expedia, and then we see what the HOA needs to net after that commission. And so that's how we help set the prices that we give to them, is we do factor in that commission. As far as commitments on giving them inventory, there are some. Like, for a while on HomeAway, we didn't list anything on HomeAway because they wanted you to block out huge chunks of room, which we know at a fixed legacy timeshare property with limited inventory, that's really not very ideal to do. But now, because of the way the technology has gotten so good and the OTAs are linked directly into our operating system, you don't have to guarantee them inventory. Now, you have to guarantee them whatever they see is available in real time, but because it all works in real time, we don't have to guarantee them, this many rooms and take that out of our inventory. We can rent it directly, even if they're trying to rent it, and so that whole real-time aspect. But if we were working with Expedia directly and it was just them sending the bookings to a person, there are sometimes some inventory commitments that you have to make. and those vary based on the booking engine, the size of the property, the various agreement that you have with them. So that's really the benefit we get in working with the distribution center, is we don't have to take our inventory out of availability to give it to them. It all stays available across all platforms.
Now, is there a correlation between the rental rates that you're able to get versus the maintenance fees? Are you giving away discounts on maintenance fees through these booking engines? Is that what your experience has been? Or are you able to sustain the maintenance fee revenue because you're dealing with equivalent of daily rentals?
Yeah, it's usually, and we see a lot of this, and the reason why buying is beneficial, a lot of times our renters are getting more than their maintenance fee. If you're an owner and you put it up for rent, typically we're seeing that, especially in prime season, you're actually getting more money remitted to you than your maintenance fee. So our rates rarely discount our maintenance fees. Sometimes in the shoulder seasons or off seasons in specific locations, you do have to offer discounts, and we all know that's the inventory everybody's struggling to rent. We're struggling to sell it. It's just a struggle no matter what. Those you sometimes have to discount, but even then, we're finding that because these properties have amenities such as kitchens and bigger rooms than typical hotels, we can still charge a little bit more, and a lot of times we'll find that we do have higher rates than the hotels on these engines, but people are using them to see that they get more for their money.
Now, are there any legal or tax considerations that have to be looked at before jumping into these relationships?
Yes. First, legally, since we were just talking about the rates, you can't have any rate parity. Like legally on our site, so we have a booking engine built into each of our resorts' individual websites, and that's ideally where you want people to book at. Like you want them to find you on Expedia and then book directly on your site, because you're not paying them their commission. You're using them as a search engine, but you're not paying them the commission if you can get it to book directly. So, but the rate that we have on our engine, say it's $100 a night, we have to give Expedia that same rate. We can't give Expedia $100 a night and then knock ours down to $90 a night at the rack rate. So legally, we can't have any rate parity. There is a way around this by putting on like a discount code and letting people take off money from that base rate, but your base rate legally has to be the same on every single platform. That's why a lot of times if you're shopping around on all these different platforms, you'll notice that you're not really finding deals. The same resort is lower someplace else because legally they can't do that. As far as taxes, that varies by state to state. For us, on all the OTAs collect and pay the taxes differently based on state. The OTAs collect it in every state, but for example, in South Carolina, the OTAs collect the taxes and then they pay them to the state and anywhere it's necessary to pay the taxes. But then in Florida, the OTAs collect all the taxes, but then they remit it to the HOAs, and then the HOAs are the ones, and we're doing it at Defender Resorts, we're doing that for them, but we're paying it out to the proper places. So it really, as far as tax things, it really varies based on the state.
So, the resorts just have to understand what the issues are that's specific to their states.
Yeah.
Now,
and luckily, since these engines are so big, they know already. Like if you have a resort in North Carolina and you go to booking.com and say you want to work with them, they know all the legalities, all the tax issues, they know exactly how it needs to go. So luckily, a lot of them have great, service departments that when you're getting set up, it's amazing how quickly you get set up. Like I was just setting up one on Airbnb, and I set up something in North Carolina and something in Maryland. And in North Carolina, they pay the taxes for you. In Maryland, you pay the taxes, and it is so straightforward. You get all this information and have it filled out because they're so educated on the topic that it's just all pretty much laid out there for you. Even if you are just a small single resort doing it and you go to one of these engines, they know what's legal and what's right and the way that it has to happen.
Tell us about the types of experiences that timeshare resorts can expect as a result of these transient guests coming in, the good and the bad about that.
I'll start off with the bad. The biggest bad thing about using an OTA is, especially in high season, there's always a possibility of overbooking. Because you're out on these engines, and even though it's real time, but when we say real time nowadays, there can still be a slight delay on that. So in your busy season, it seems unlikely, but it does happen. An OTA could be booking something while somebody at your resort is on the phone with somebody booking that exact same room, and you're both looking, since you're both looking at the same inventory, there is a risk of overbooking. And then with these legacy fixed inventory resorts, there's also, like I mentioned earlier, the possibility of them having to move rooms. If an owner comes in and wants to check in, we know that, unit 201 is their unit. So if you have a transient guest in there, you might have to move them to unit 301. And that's not really an experience anybody wants on their vacation, is getting settled in and having to pack up and move. There are ways around this. For us, as much as we would like to automate the system, we still have somebody looking at that full time, seeing when people do come in and, the bookings are close, how they can massage the inventory and move people around so they're not moving and so we're not overbooked. Because that's a legality I left out, is if we get overbooked and we can't accommodate the guest that's booked on an OTA, the HOA does have to pay a relocation fee to the OTA. Now, the OTA, like Expedia, will put them at a different spot, but we have to pay for that, or the HOA has to pay for that. So you really want to try to avoid those overbookings because it can cost money. And like I said, the way to avoid that is having somebody consistently looking at the inventory. And then another bad thing sometimes about them is making sure, and this is where a lot of copywriting comes in, is making sure that guest expectations are properly communicated. Because a lot of people booking on these OTAs, they in their head are booking a hotel. So to them, a hotel, to most of us, has daily maid service. It has 24/7 front desk. And there shouldn't be a reason that you should have to move rooms because, inventory should be flexible in the consumer mind. So as long as you communicate that properly and in a way that still, highlights the positives of the resort, that as well you can get around. But guest expectations of what exactly they're booking into can be a little bit of a negative if that's not out there in the right way. But there is good, so touching the good things, you get a lot of new guests, and people don't vacation, they don't search for vacations the way that they used to. So without using these online platforms, a lot of these resorts literally have no way to get in front of new guests. So there's a huge opportunity in this, and the good experiences are that you're getting younger people that are possible to make sales to, so that's a positive. You're getting people that are maybe in the stages of starting a family and they can see the benefit of owning, and maybe their parents owned and that kind of thing. And then all of this just adds up to increased HOA revenue, which all helps the financial health of the resort. So that's really the biggest good thing is that increased revenue.
Now, are there any tips for turning those transient guests into repeat customers?
Mm-hmm. The biggest thing that we stress at every single resort is data. We're all in marketing talking about data these days, and it's so important to collect the customer data when they check in, because so a lot of OTAs, when an OTA puts a booking automatically into our system, that person is still kind of technically the OTA's guest. And when it auto-loads everything in there, your OTAs won't give you their exact email address. You get this weird email address that's like booking@expedia.com. So you have to make sure that your customer service representatives are erasing that and getting the person's true contact information. And getting any information, like if they come to that area multiple times, how often they like to travel, just learning anything about them that you can, without being creepy or anything, but documenting like their email address and stuff like that. Because if you don't get their email address and you don't, have their proper phone number or ways to contact them, you've pretty much completely lost the possibility of returning them into a repeat customer, because you can't remain top of mind. You can't reach out to them on Facebook. You can't send them an email, roughly around the time that they're planning their next vacation. So if your resort doesn't stay top of mind, then you can't, turn them into a repeat customer. And then, but the biggest thing is to offer them an unforgettable time. OTAs, to them, they're cold, hard engines that they use to book travel. They don't really have a love for them. It's just that they're there and they're easy to use. But if you can give them an experience at your resort that truly makes them feel happy, they enjoy their vacation, they're going to take that with them. They're going to like you on Facebook. They're going to share it. So even if they don't become a repeat customer because they don't like to travel to the same place, one of their friends might become a customer, and they did that marketing for you. So, and by getting that email address, what's really cool about technology these days is, like on Facebook, for example, you can take an email list of everyone that stayed at your resort in the past year, and you can upload that to Facebook, and Facebook will connect that to the person, and then they can also create a lookalike audience and show it to their friends, people that have the same income and habits, and all these crazy data points that make them similar to them. And then you can show them an ad, and you can get clicks on that ad to your resort for 15 cents a click. So your advertising spend is minimal, but it's so specifically targeted that you generate good results for, pennies. So yeah, those are the biggest things we use to turn transient guests into repeat customers. It's mostly just staying top of mind and creating an experience that gives them the desire to come back to that same place, because we have a lot of options for travel. So you have to give them a reason to want to come back to the same place over and over again, especially with millennials. Millennials typically don't like to travel to the same place or stay at the same places. So, but you can kind of override that if you give them something truly, phenomenal.
Now, at what point do you capture this information about email addresses? Is it upon check-in?
Yep, upon check-in is the best time to do it. It's usually when people are in the best moods, they haven't encountered any issues, if they are going to encounter any issues. And that's when they're giving you information anyways. It's typically, we see a lot sometimes people don't want to ask for email addresses and that kind of thing. But we're also accustomed when we're checking in to that's when we give a credit card for incidentals or a deposit or this or that. That's when we're having that interaction with the front desk staff. So that's the easiest time and the most natural time to ask for it. And a lot of people won't even blink an eye. Now, the important part about that, though, is you can't break their trust and bombard their email box. For example, people don't travel 30 times a year, so no property ever has any reason to send 30 emails per year. Touch base quarterly, something like that. If it's minimal, they'll be okay with it, but you can't spam people and break their trust. But yeah, check-in is the best time to get it.
And then do you have any parting words for the guests when they're leaving in terms of trying to encourage repeat business, or do you just let them check out and they go their merry way? A lot of people are anxious to get out, get on the road. So is that kind of a passive point of contact?
Yeah, we try to make that a bit of a passive point of contact. There's a comment card that they are encouraged to fill out, but it's not in any way pushed or anything. It's just kind of, there's a comment card, if you'd like to, we hope you enjoyed your stay, have a nice time. And kind of like you said, you send them on their way quickly because they've got a long travel day ahead of them. They probably have to return to work within the next day or two, so get them out at the door. What we like to do is we touch base then a couple of days after they've checked in. Once you have their email address at check-in, once you're kind of starting to fade from their mind, but you're still top of mind enough, we send a checkout email that asks them to rate us. And from there, we kind of try to get their feedback. Once they're in the mindset of reminiscing about their vacation and they've maybe returned to work and they're kind of, I would rather be back on vacation, when they hit that. And then that, I include links to the Facebook page and the TripAdvisor page and encourage them to leave us feedback so, we can continue to improve and we can thank our employees for a job well done, that kind of thing. So we found that by passively reaching out like that, they don't feel pushed or bombarded or annoyed or anything like that. Because the nice thing about an email is if they don't want to answer it, they just delete it, and it doesn't cause a big ruckus. But it ends up a lot of people, it was such a pleasant experience that they do feel like they want to now join your Facebook community or leave some public, reviews on TripAdvisor, that kind of thing.
Well, this has been very helpful, and I'm sure it's going to stimulate a lot of thinking among our members at TBMA. How can our listeners get in touch with you if they have some questions about OTAs and how to go about generating or putting into place a plan for working with the OTAs?
They can email me at Ellert, Kellert, at defenderresorts.com. They can also call me at 843-449-6500, extension 226.
And this concludes this broadcast of the Resort Management and Marketing Channel. We look forward to seeing everyone at the next TBMA conference. For details, email resorts@tstoday.com. That's resorts@tstoday.com.